Hello and welcome to Vermont Film Essentials. I'm Lincoln L. Hayes.
My name is David Metzger.
We are talking Seven Samurai this week.
Seven Samurai.
When you put this on the schedule, I was so excited. I've wanted to see this for years. I've never had access to it. Nobody I know owns it except for you, and you gave it to me to watch, so that's exciting. And I was actually just in Barnes & Noble, and they're having their big Criterion Collection sale, and it was on sale for like $25, and I was so close to buying it, but I've made a rule for myself. Not going to buy a DVD or Blu-ray unless I've seen it.
Right.
Because I have too many movies on my shelf that I haven't ever watched.
But then
I watched this. And man, oh man, even at 3.5 hours, this is such a good movie. Such a good movie. It's so gorgeous.
It's stunning.
And the fact that it's shot in 1954.
Yep.
Shot on a modest by American standards budget. High for Japanese budget at the time. In black and white, with, natural, like they built a set, but it's not on a studio, it's on a location. And so many actors, so many extras, just so much going on, and then there's rain, and there's horses, and there's swords and spears, and all this other stuff. I couldn't look away from this movie for 3.5 hours. And anytime I did need to pause and do something, I was like, I don't want to. I want to keep watching this. My cats wanted to play with me while I was watching. I was like, no.
No cats.
Get. What was your first experience watching this?
Oh my God. So it had been a long time. It was on my list for a long time.
Of course.
I went through the first year of college. No class showed it, strangely. And then I had always had that quote from Steven Spielberg in my head of like, before I direct a movie, I watch 4 movies. And it's A Wonderful Life, Lawrence of Arabia, The Searchers, and Seven Samurai. I was 3 for 4. And this was the one that I, had yet to see. And just kind of like you, like it was just never in my grasp.
Where do you find this movie?
But luckily, Burlington College had a very substantial library at the time, and I just, of my own volition, checked it out, brought it back home, watched it, and just like you, I'm just like, this, like, epic isn't a big enough word for what this is. And what struck me like right off the bat is, at that time, I'm a little bit stingier right now about film length.
Yes.
And about the fact that films nowadays tend to be much longer than they need to be.
They're bloated beyond any kind of rationale.
And this, still to this day, it's like the bar for like, if it needs to be 3.5 hours.
It has to be this good.
And it has to use up every minute of it for its benefit. And this absolutely does. And then any person that wants to say that an action film can't be high art, there's always this film up there like, hey, look at me.
Oh, but a moment, please. Here we are.
It's Shakespearean. Like it deals with themes of honor and courage and what it is to be a hero.
Yeah.
And it deals with all these large themes that all of these movies that we love do, and it all started with this. Like, that was the other thing, was like, you watch this movie and it's like Star Wars, Battlestar Galactica, Lord of the Rings, Mad Max,
Magnificent Seven.
Magnificent Seven.
Obviously.
Good, Bad, the Ugly, Once Upon a Time in the West. Like, any epic film, any Western that came after this film, any samurai film that came after this film, any adventure film, any war film, any historical film.
Here it is.
Looks to this film,
Yeah.
and it's like every archetype is represented by one of the 7.
Yep.
Not only does, you look at the length and you're like, oh my God, 3.5 hours, really? But each one of those 7.
It's going to have a moment.
It's like they are all, my screenwriting teacher in college had this awesome quote where he was just like, it's like, when you write a character, I want to know what they have in their glove compartment. And it's like you want to be able to just like have a dossier on your character and say like, you know, this is what makes them
It's interesting
tick.
that you use the word dossier, David. Kurosawa wrote a dossier for every speaking role in this film.
It shows.
Speaking role from, you know, farmer who goes, here they come,
Right.
to all 7 of the samurai. Unheard of, and who does that? Also, I read that Kurosawa painted his storyboards for every film. Painted! This man is both a genius and insane, which, you know,
Right.
go hand in hand.
But it's just it's food for you because you look at that and you're like, oh man, really?
Yeah.
Like this is what we have to do?
Yeah.
But
It
like,
just, as aspiring filmmakers, it's just like, oh God, do I have to do that much work? But if you're that passionate, and if you're that driven, I mean, you should show a picture of your prompt book for Northland. That thing was, whew. And that's, you know, it ended up being a 57-minute feature.
Right.
This is a 3.5-hour film, and I didn't see any hand-painted storyboards in years.
No.
So, come on, David.
I got to get on that.
Step it up.
But no, I mean, like, you know, it's not just you get to know these 7 characters. You get to know the villagers. You get to know the farmers. You get to know the women that are in the, and it's just, it's on and on and on. The only film that I can kind of compare it to in a modern sense is Michael Mann's Heat, in the sense that you're starting with a very simple cops and robbers storyline.
Right.
But then he just does so much research, and like every character, not just De Niro and Pacino, but you know the guy that they get to do the getaway driving when the other guy falls through. It's like you know everything about these characters, and they each have their own slice of humanity, so that in the 2 hours that you're getting to know all of these people, once the battle starts, you're like, ugh,
Yeah.
not, you know,
Not him.
not them, not that,
Yeah.
not that person.
When we start losing samurai in this film, I said aloud, "Not him!"
Right, you feel it.
No. And obviously, you're going to lose a few because it's an action movie, and you got to lose a couple of them along the way. But each one, you're just like, "Oh no!" And at one point, like Daenerys woke up and got all crazy. I'm like, "No, sit still. I have to pay attention. He's dying."
You feel it, like,
Yeah.
and it's a remarkable screenplay, because even Kurosawa says, like, there's a quote where someone asked him, like, you know, what did you study, what did you look at before you started making movies? And he's like, well, I studied the masters, by which I mean John Ford, and John Ford. And you feel that when you watch this movie, you're like, oh, that's a John Ford shot, that's a John Ford shot.
Yeah.
But he loved Westerns. And specifically, he loved John Ford's Stagecoach. And that film is kind of similar in the way that Stagecoach has so many different characters in them, and you feel like each character represents a particular archetype for that form and for that genre. And Kurosawa is like, I love Westerns, but, you know, obviously I can't make that here.
Right.
I don't have cowboys, I don't have Indians, so
What's the
I
next
have
best
samurai.
thing? I have samurai. Yeah.
I have bandits, and that is pretty much the same thing. So you see how he structures his story, and it works because underneath it all is that clothesline of, so the bandits come, they're bothering these villagers. The villagers have to come up with a plan, so they hire a samurai. The samurai says, well, I
can't do it alone.
I can't do it alone, so he has to go and recruit 7 samurai. And then, you know, there's not only like, you know, okay, the setup of these bandits are coming, they're destroying this village. They have to come up with a plan, so let's hire a samurai. And then there's the recruitment of all the different samurai.
Yeah.
And you think about that as a film trope now.
It's the getting the band together
Right.
montage.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's the training of the samurai.
The training montage.
And then it's the getting to know the villagers and getting to know, like, you know, what's really at stake? Am I just doing this because this is I'm a samurai and this is what I've been trained to do, or is there something else? Is there a real reason that I am here to defend these villagers? And then after that, it's just the confrontation and the battle, and I mean that battle in the rain
is majestic.
I mean, it's.
And knowing what I've found out in my research, that they filmed that in February, it had snowed, so they had to hose everything down to melt all the snow, and then it's torrential downpour. They're up to their ankles in freezing cold water. Kurosawa almost lost a couple toenails during that because he was standing in the water with everybody, and his feet got so cold he lost toenails. That's dedication
That's
to
directing.
a picture. What does a director do? He loses toenails.
He loses toenails.
If you want to direct, you lose some toenails.
Right.
That's what you do.
See, like he was the gold standard. It was like if you want to be a director, you have to lose at least 2 toenails. And then Francis Ford Coppola is like, if you want to be a director, you got to lose your mind.
Yeah, just utterly and entirely. I did find it interesting at the very top of the film that the bandits at least have the respect for the people. I wouldn't say respect, but they have the foresight to be like, we already stole all their rice. We should wait and then steal the other stuff. We shouldn't just go in now. So they're not just out to kill everybody.
Right.
They're like, we need something here.
Right.
But that scene, I was just like, oh, that's kind of noble of you to not just kill all of them right off the bat. The formation of the group is so well done. And obviously this is the first time that it's happened, so it's just become a thing.
A standard, yep.
That happens in movies now. But just the way that they go about finding the samurai and bringing them together, and the test of like the one's going to stand off to the side with a stick and go to attack them, and if they're a true samurai, their senses will be on high alert and they'll catch it and they'll stop it. And then the one who we ultimately find out isn't a real samurai, he comes in and he's drunk and he gets hit and he's really mad about it and all that stuff. And it's just, you have such colorful and vibrant characters from the instant we meet them. It's not even like, oh, and this is Yoshido and he does this kind of thing. And like, we don't have any kind of getting to know them moments or scenes or anything like that. They are who they are, and we get to meet them.
Right.
And it's our honor to get to meet them. And the dynamic between the group is so great. We have the leader, we have the second in command who's very jovial. I was really surprised at the amount of humor in this film. Like, despite the fact that the bandits come in and they rape and pillage and take everything and burn a bunch of stuff down, like the villagers still manage to laugh and have fun, like when they're training and things like that. And even the samurai, when they're doing the recruiting and they're not sure if it's going to work out, or they're doing this, that, or the other thing, there's always moments of humor and levity that they're able to give each other because they understand the stakes are so high, but you can't stay amped up like that all the time. You got to take the edge off a little bit.
Right.
And even though this is a 3.5-hour film, if it had just been high drama the whole time, it would be exhausting.
Right.
You'd be done with this, you'd be like, did I just watch Hamlet again?
Right.
Jeez. But it's up and down, it's up and down, It's got levels, it's a human story. People aren't at an 11 all the time. There are moments, well, let's chill out a little bit. And let's drink some sake or hang out around the fire and tell stories or what have you.
And that's the type of thing that he learned from John Ford, because John Ford always had those like moments of levity and those moments of like...
The around the campfire scenes.
Yeah. And he knew that, okay, if I want my audience to fall in love with these people and to be with these people, the true way to a person's heart is laughter. So that they are human and they aren't just like, these heroes.
Because they could be so easily just the stoic, like Kane from Kung Fu coming in, doing the job, and then leaving. And I've only seen the remake of Magnificent Seven. I haven't seen the original. And that is kind of what they did with Denzel Washington's character in that. He doesn't have a lot of humor to him. He's just the man who's going to come in and he's going to get the job done. And aside from hundreds of other flaws with that film, but that's one that watching Seven Samurai was like, that they didn't translate that very well. It's not about being the fastest gun. It's about being a good leader. And in this film, we have an excellent leader. you're with him 100%. From the first scene you meet him, you're like, I'm going to follow that guy.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get the job done.
And even that has somehow become a trope where like your introduction to the leader or the main character, he's doing something that has nothing to do with the plot.
It's like a cold open in a Bond film.
Right. Or, or Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yep.
It's just all these things that that filmmakers today still look upon and say, like, well, he did it, I got to try to do it like that.
Yeah.
And that this film can still, that you can still watch that battle scene in the rain and you can still be like, oh my God, like there's nothing like this today. Yet everything that you see today, whether it be the D-Day opening of Saving Private Ryan, or even the battle scene from last season of Game of Thrones, you're like, well, they watched it and they tried to do what he did.
His use of rain, thematically, is perfect. Every time that there's rain in this film, it means something. It's not just, ooh, cool atmosphere. It's about to go down. And you can see that in epic pieces for the rest of time. Lord of the Rings, Battle of Helm's Deep, the Battle of the Blackwater, Game of Thrones. Doesn't happen in Star Wars, but they're in space. It can't rain in space. But if it could, it would. Because George Lucas would be like, can we put some rain in this? No, George. This is outer space.
In one of the what is it? Is it Revenge of the Sith or the one before it?
Attack of the Clones?
Yeah.
No, they're fighting on a desert planet. See, he just missed all the important points from filmmakers. He's like, I'm going to have a huge battle in the desert.
Should have had rain.
You should have had rain, buddy, but it's the desert. That's on you. Oh, I'm going to have a fight on a volcano. Can't rain on a volcano. There's no moisture in the air. That's on you, George. Idiot. There's even a love story in this. And it's not a heavy-handed love story. Nope. It's not even a B storyline. It's C or D at best. But it's important. It's important to the character. It's important to the villagers. It's important to all three of them, their father. It's important to the leader of the samurai because that's like his ward. It's his protege who's getting distracted from his samurai duties because he's falling in love with this girl, which is like a Jedi sort of thing of like the Jedi's path. And it becomes enough of a conflict that it does bleed into the A storyline or into the B storyline. And something else that just really struck me was the amount of emotion shown in this film. People are crying in every third scene, crying about the plight of the village, crying because someone was killed in one of the little skirmishes. There's so much emotion that I did not think was a part of particularly Japanese culture at that time.
Yeah.
To see grown men weeping like that, I was like, wow. Granted, I know nothing about the 50s in Japan, but that just struck me as progressive in a way and really, really surprising.
And that's it's one of the things that I always think about because there always seemed to be this division between, do you want to be the indie film, European filmmaker that just tells human, character-driven stories, or do you want to be the American filmmaker that tells a big sweeping story, but with not a lot of character-driven, emotional substance. And this film is right there to say, like, no, you can do both.
And if you do it well, it can be incredibly effective.
Incredibly effective, and that's where, like you say, like, it's not just about the mechanics of having a person come into town to battle bandits.
Right.
Just so you can create a big action sequence and have some violence and some shoot 'em ups. There's like actual real stakes.
Yeah.
And there's the scene in this film that always, like, it punches me right in the fucking gut every time, is when he finds the child.
Yeah.
And he's holding him. He's like, "This child is me." It's just like it's such a like a shotgun of humanity.
Yeah.
In the center of what could be just a action film.
Yeah. And that character's arc is amazing.
It's magnificent.
When we meet him, he's stumbling drunk.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to be a samurai. He lies about being a samurai. He lies about his lineage. He lies about his name, which I didn't even pick up on. But when he pulls out his family tree and all of that, and he said that this is me, he picks a girl's name. But they don't tease him about that. They tease him about the fact that he picked a 13-year-old girl's name. Mm-hmm. So he is illiterate. He can't read the thing that he's purporting to be his family tree.
Yep.
I didn't even pick up on that until I was reading about it. And I was like, wow. And then they don't tease him about the girl name, which is also progressive. They tease him because, oh, you clearly can't read. You're 13? Sure you are. Mm-hmm. And then he becomes the one that trains all the villagers. Yep. He's the one that gets close to the villagers and is devastated when the one old guy is shot down. Mm-hmm. He's the one who runs into the mill to save the woman and the baby. And you find out that he's so passionate about defending these people because he grew up a farmer. And there's such a class system in Japan at that time that peasants, farmers are at the bottom of the barrel and everybody else is better than them. So for him to aspire to be greater things, to try to be a samurai, to be accepted by these samurai, yep, and accepted by these villagers as their defender is an incredible honor for him. He's not going to show it. He's not going to be grateful because he's too proud and he's too boastful. But he has those small moments of humanity throughout, and then he does get to die a hero.
Yep. He has the ultimate hero's death.
Yeah.
And it's such an amazing scene because it just keeps going on and on.
Yeah.
And you know what's gonna, at a certain point you're like, I know what's gonna happen, but he just keeps going, and it's just so heartbreaking. But
because when he gets shot, you're just like, oh no! But then he gets back up and like, okay, he's gonna do it, and then he just stalks that guy. And I read that his research for the role was he watched a lot of films of lions in the wild, and man, your animal work is coming through, buddy, because you are a beast. Mm-hmm. And then when he's able to track him down, I mean, does he knock him through the back of the house, or do they go through a back door?
He knocks him through the back of the house, yeah.
And then chases him onto the bridge, and there he is.
So that guy, Toshiro Mifune, he kind of like, what Scorsese is to De Niro, that's what Kurosawa is to Mifune. And, they had such a great relationship throughout like so many different movies, but it started here, and he's an incredible actor, incredible presence. He
improvised the majority of his part, which was unprecedented in a Kurosawa film, before or after. And I'm not sure if he's still alive, but for the rest of his life, he held this as his favorite role because he's like, I got to be myself. The first draft of this film was 500 pages. Kurosawa co-wrote it with two other screenwriters, and he gave the screenwriter who took the first draft, he just said, just write it freeform, just whatever comes out, write it down. And he got 500 pages. And this is the 50s. I doubt he typed it.
Yep.
He probably wrote it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And the Kurosawa was like, let me just paint all of it for you. That's crazy.
And it's so amazing that he just wanted to make I want to make the ultimate samurai film. Mm-hmm. And that he can, because he had that structure. So that clothesline of a structure. Mm-hmm. As long as I have this structure, I know what the beginning is. I know what I know what needs to happen in the middle, and then I know what my ending is.
Right.
Roughly. The bandits come in. They are destroying the villagers. The villagers retaliate, hire the samurai. That's it. Mm-hmm. As long as he had that, he can put as much detail as he wants, as long as he keeps that structure.
Yeah.
Same way, like as so Mel Gibson with Braveheart. It's really just Mad Max, but
Yeah.
but in a historical context, so he can add as much historical accuracy as he wants, put them in Scottish clothes, and he's got his movie.
Yeah.
Same thing with this, like he's got that bare bones structure of a Western, but he can throw on anything he wants, and he does.
Put in as much of his culture and his beliefs and everything that he wants in that story, and he can flesh it out, and he takes the time to do it, and it doesn't feel overlong. It doesn't feel like 3.5 hours. I mean, yes, there were moments when you kind of lose a little bit of steam just because of the translation.
Yep.
Because you're reading. It would be different. I looked through the audio settings to see if there was a dubbed one, and there wasn't, which I was pleased to find. There are 2 commentary tracks on there, though, which I want to watch those.
Dig into them now.
But you never get bored. You never think, oh, I don't need this scene.
Right.
It's all excellent.
And it's all necessary. Like you feel like if someone were to go in and be like, okay, it's 3.5 hours, you were contractually obligated to give us a 2-hour film.
Well, the studio originally cut 50 minutes from the American release because they didn't think Americans would sit through a movie of this length, which, oof, devastating. So, I mean, what would you cut? They probably cut the love story, although American audiences need a love story, so you can't cut that. Probably some of the training stuff, but then you cut the training stuff, then when the villagers are fighting, you're like, well, how did they get so good at fighting? Well, because they trained a bunch. They've been doing stuff this entire time.
You feel like it's like a house of cards, and it's like, you pull one thing and it crumbles.
And just his ability, I mean, it's textbook screenwriting. You can see all of the beats that you need to hit in a screenplay. You have your beginning, you have your inciting incident, you have, the montagey stuff, then you have the rising action, then you have the denouement, and then we have the resolution and the conclusion of the film. And it's a happy ending that isn't happy. Like, the movie ended, and I was just like, they won, but they didn't.
Right.
And that's what he says. He's like, this victory wasn't for us. It was for them. We still lost. And then you look up and you see the 4 swords. You're just like, oh, man. I really like those guys, too.
And a hell of a composition, those 4 swords there.
Top of a hill. You can see all 4 of them with all the farmers' graves as well, blowing in the wind.
There's so many, this would be one of those films like what they say with The Searchers, where you can turn off the volume and you can follow the story.
Oh, yeah.
You can do that. I mean, you'd miss the kind of nuances and the emotion of it, but there are shots in this film where you're just like,
the scene in the flowers, gorgeous. Yep. Gorgeous. And it makes you want to see it in color.
Yep.
Nothing else. I don't want to see any of the rest of the film in color, but I want to see that scene just to see all of that pop.
And again, that's not a typical scene that you would see in a quote unquote like male dominated film.
Yeah, this is a guy movie.
Right.
What are you doing with flowers?
Right. So, that it has that type of humanity and that kind of that feminine side to it, that no, it's not just about the men getting together and battling. It's what does this do to every person in this village, whether they're male, female, child, old. I mean, there's no stone left unturned in this story. And he was at the forefront of that, doing that. And some filmmakers, they're like, you get to their career and you look at all the films that they made, and it's like, most of them are lucky to have one Seven Samurai, where it's like, it's an epic film, it's a big, long, like 3.5 hour epic, and this guy has like 5 of those.
Yeah.
And it's no wonder that you know, he makes this film and he's like, he gets a taste for it. And then, you know, 20, 30 years later, he makes Ron. And that is basically a retelling of King Lear.
Yeah.
And you're like, of course, he did that. But then how did you do that and that? It's just crazy. Crazy the amount of films that he's made.
Mm-hmm. And so many of them were available at Barnes & Noble, and I was so tempted to buy them. But my new rule, I was like, nope, I haven't seen it yet. But now I want to see all of them.
Might I submit, you get Filmstruck and the Criterion Show because, holy God, I have it for 3 days and I'm...
How many movies have you watched?
5.
Good for you. Good
But
for
I mean,
you.
but like you're just like, I find myself just looking at the app and it's like, ooh, this one, ooh, this one.
Yeah.
There's just like an endless amount of material.
Oh, I want it.
And you can do it by director, so you can put in Kurosawa and you'd be like,
Oh,
hey,
boy.
watch these 5
See,
films.
that's the shortcoming of Netflix, is that you can't search by actor or director.
Mm-hmm.
You can get genre. And even, I was looking in the other day, this is a tangent, don't worry. And I just was looking through comedies. I didn't know any of them. Like, they're all either Netflix originals or like Freeform, the new ABC Family, or like Korean stuff. And I was like, okay, there have to be more comedies than just these.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
very confused.
I'll go on another tangent. So Filmstruck has now come up with, like, they have their own podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And they have one episode out, and I started listening to it, and before, it was with Darren Aronofsky, so I'm like, okay, I'll listen to Darren Aronofsky. But before, she's interviewing a person that works at Filmstruck, and she's like, so tell me about, like, what do you, like, what's your day? Like, what do you do at Filmstruck? And she's like, well, we just kind of sit around, we just think about, you know, like, it's curating films, so like, how do we want to put these films together, like what, and I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I can't listen to this, it's just making me angry, because I just want this job so much.
I want your job so bad. So anybody at Filmstruck who might be watching, hire him.
Oh my God, I'll give you themes.
Yeah, look at this show. He had a female protagonists month without even making it intentional. What was I going to talk about next? This film was made the same year, the same time as Godzilla, and it nearly bankrupted the production studio. Can you imagine? Oh, what are you guys working on right now? Well, we got this monster movie about this creature comes out of the sea and destroys Tokyo. And we have this epic about 7 samurai.
Yep.
Cool, that sounds neat. What else are you doing? And who would have thought that those 2 films would be the films that they are?
Right. That they still last, and that they,
Yeah.
you know, and both of them have this undercurrent subtext of humanity to them, where it's like, yeah, it's a samurai film, but it's way more than a samurai film. It's a monster movie, but it's
So much
way
more than that.
a monster movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, both of them kind of. I'm blanking on the director of Godzilla, unfortunately, but you know, both of them just. I like to think that they met for lunch at some point, and they're just like, you know,
Tell me about
sharing
your project.
stories about
Yeah.
what they're doing. The one thing that is apparent in this film is the violence and the way violence is used and the way violence is shown, because it's, you know, before this film, fight scenes, in particular, like Japanese battles and Japanese swordplay, tended to be very balletic and, you know, very choreographed and very aestheticized, I guess, for lack of a better
Stagey.
word. Yeah, you know, you can tell that they rehearsed this. And
5, 6, 7, 8. Clang, clang, back, down, right, left, up, bottom, and dead.
And with this film, you just get like it's messy, it's chaotic, and there's times where you're watching it where you're just like like what like even if you're watching it like with that filmmaker eye of
Yeah.
like, how did you get this done?
I'm nervous for the horses in every
Right.
scene
Yeah.
because those aren't sharp spears, those aren't sharp swords, but still, those are horses being chased by a group of people yelling and screaming. Those horses are going to get scared, and they're giant 2,000-pound animals that could kill you. And this is obviously before there were any kind of like major protections for
Right.
animals and things on sets.
Right.
And I'm sure they went to their lengths that they could, but especially running around in all that mud. There's one shot where I think it's right after, I don't know characters' names, the non-samurai hero, after he dies, and then they're like running back, and it's kind of an up angle, and then the camera tilts to pan to watch them. My only thought was, man, there had to be so many rolled ankles in this movie. Just you step wrong in the mud, and down you go, and then we gotta clean him off, and we need to wrap his ankle, and all this other stuff. It's just the logistics of filming something like this make my head hurt.
And that he was, his big thing was, I'm going to use the telephoto lens so that I can be way far back, but get that lens right into the action. And you feel it, like there's scenes in there where you feel like you're in the middle, you're in the thick of it, and like it's a wonder to kind of try to think of like what it was like in 1954 to kind of sit down and watch this movie, because there was just nothing else like it.
Right.
And now, like, it's all about like, how do we even push it further?
Right.
But even with that, even with 1954 on, yeah, we've got the D-Day sequence in Saving Private Ryan. Yeah, we've got the big battles in Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones.
Even first-person shooter kind of stuff in films with GoPros and things like that.
But
drones.
you still look at this film and nothing. You don't watch it and be like, well, they've progressed far beyond this, so that I can't watch this now and not be impressed. You watch this and you're way impressed.
Yeah.
Still.
It's just, I mean, it's like so many of the other films that we're covering. It's just like, how did you do that at that time with the limits of technology that you have? He also shot this multi-camera, which he had never done before and was completely uncommon, especially in Japanese cinema at the time. So he's using telephoto lenses and multiple cameras to achieve these shots that he wants. And I'm sure everybody was just like, what is he doing?
Right.
This is crazy. This is such a waste of time and money. And there was actually a couple instances where they threatened to shut down production at least twice. And rather than really fight it, he was just like, all right. And he went fishing, because he's like, they've invested way too much money in this to shelve it now. And he was right. They eventually were like, all right, well, you can resume production. He's like, okay.
And it's hard, like when you want to get that, like I can only sympathize with him just as much in that to get this level of messiness and chaos, you have to create messiness and chaos.
Yeah.
And to an outside observer or someone just being in the middle of it, you're looking at it and you're just like, well, none of this is going to cut together. None of this is going to work.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know what I'm saying or doing. I don't know where I am. I could be here. I could be there.
Yeah.
How is this going to work? And somehow he got in the editing room and it works.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. Like he developed this style of editing where he shot all day, edited all night, and did that for the whole shoot.
For 148 days of principal photography.
And
You did that for 5.
Right, and I'm like,
you were a wreck.
right?
I'd see you and I'd be like, I think you need a nap, David.
No. But
We have to get the shot. The light's perfect.
And I get it. Like I like, you put it together so you can tell what you need, what you still need, what but Jesus, man, like it's a lot.
It's so much. And this is film.
Right.
This isn't digital. This isn't sitting at your laptop with Final Cut or Adobe Premiere.
Right.
This is
Splice and go.
razor blades and scotch tape and it's unfathomable the amount of work and the dedication to this project that he had. And it's heartbreaking to hear that probably 20 years from this, 15, 20 years, he attempted suicide because he had hit a lull in his career and things were not going well, and he tried to take his own life, was unsuccessful, and he was able to come back out of that low point, and then he ended up making a handful more amazing films.
Mm-hmm.
The tortured artist is a real thing, and people are like, oh, but no, it's hard to continue after something like this.
Right.
Like this could have been his only film. He could have just been like, well, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
The well is dry.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't. He had more stories to tell. He had more that he wanted to say. And he just continued to be impressive the rest of his career. And now I want to get Filmstruck, and I just want to fall down the Kurosawa rabbit hole. Because it's a name that I've heard. The first time I heard it was the Bare Naked Lady songs. One week,
Yeah.
like Kurosawa, I make mad films. And I was like, I don't know who that is. And then, I found out that it was a film director, and he's a Japanese director. He did Seven Samurai, and he did Jimbo and Rashomon and all these other films. And I was like, okay, somebody give those to me to watch. And I haven't seen any of them except this one until now. But I know that they're out there.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe with Amazon Prime, I will get some of those into my eyeballs to watch.
And it's great that there's so many different films to pluck from in terms of his career, because he's got a samurai films like this film, and Yojimbo, and The Hidden Fortress, Throne of Blood. But then you've also got Rashomon, you've got Akira, and you got Redbeard, and there's just so many different things, and all of them you watch, and it's that same level of detail and humanity and confidence in his storytelling. But yeah, this is always the one that you kind of go to, and you're like, okay, if I'm gonna, if I want to make a no crap movie, then
Mm-hmm.
This is something to study.
Yeah, if you want just like a blueprint of how to make a solid film, watch this and just take even minimal notes.
Mm-hmm.
If you hit 3 of the story beats, you probably got a good story.
Yep.
You could very easily take this movie, and obviously they've done it for the last 60, 70 years, but just take the story, condense it, make it smaller, put it in a convenience store, put it in, a small town bank, put it in, a Western. There you go. And you could just make this same story on and on and on and on and on. And as long as you stick to what he did well, it will probably be watchable, if not good, and potentially great. Magnificent Seven, from what I know of it, is fantastic. And I still need to see it. The remake, not so much. But it's a remake, and they missed the point. I keep trying to think if there's anything in this film that doesn't work, even in 2017. If there's any moments, if there's any line readings, anything like that. And I don't know the degree of professionalism of the performers in this film, but none of them feel like bad actors.
Nope.
None of them feel like, a day player and under 5 or anything like that. And in so many films, you can feel that. You feel that like, that's, the producer's nephew, or, even Scorsese puts his mom and everything, and she's not a trained actress, so whenever you do see her, you're like, no, it's Scorsese's mom. Right. That's cute. It's cute. There's nobody that's cute in this. There's nobody that's serviceable.
Right.
There's nobody that's like, oh, he wasn't very good. Even the smallest villager part is great. Even the kids are great. There's the one scene where he got the rice balls, and he's talking to the children, and he's making jokes and stuff. And he asks one of the little kids if he's got a sister. And that kid's reaction to him is so honest and so real, because it probably was. They probably got a bunch of kids together. This guy was a big character, really fun, really funny. and he's calling them piss pants and all this other stuff, and it's silly and it's fun, and he just points to one kid randomly, and that kid giggles. But it isn't like a movie kid giggle from a Hollywood film where like that kid's mom is off camera coaching him and doing all that stuff. It's just real people, and we're watching it.
Mm-hmm. And the themes are so, they're solid storytelling themes that are timeless. Yeah. So that whether you're making the film in 1954 or 1964 or 2017, it's like they're always going to be there. It might vary in terms of like, what is masculinity now, what is it to be a hero now, yada yada yada. But again, like the structures and the themes are still the same, and they still can be applied. You just gotta, it's knowing that those are the things that continue to work and that you can continue to use them.
Yeah.
That's what makes it just a little bit easier.
Yeah.
When you're working on your stuff.
I don't know. It's
just amazing.
It's
right?
just all praise. Like
Yeah.
I feel like in order to have a conversation about film, there needs to be a positive and a negative. Mm-hmm. The only negative for a Western audience is that it's 3.5 hours long. There's nothing else to critique about this movie.
Right.
And it's frustrating because we're trying to be scholarly about this and take it seriously, but in the end, how can you not love this movie? The biggest criticism it could possibly get is, oh, it's boring.
Right.
And that person's just not paying attention.
Right. Or just, because there's two or maybe three when you have someone who would not want to watch this movie. It's like, one, it's 3.5 hours. Two, it's in black and white. Three,
subtitled.
It's subtitled. So, but those three things, like one, black and white is awesome. Two, I swear to God, you're not going to feel the 3.5 hours.
No.
It's going to go by like that. If you can watch the extended editions of Lord of the Rings that are 4 hours, then you can watch this movie.
Yeah.
And then three, again, it's kind of like, there's subtitled movies where it's frustrating because you do have to pay attention, you have to read what's going on. But there's moments in this film where if you miss something, it's a shame.
Yeah.
But you're not missing something.
No.
Because it's very visual. It's kind of like with Amelie.
And context clues, you'll figure it out.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah.
The visual storytelling is very solid and very strong, so that even if you miss something, a couple shots later you're gonna get it.
Yeah, you'll figure it out.
And then that's just what makes it better each time you watch it, is that you pick up those little things, And then
you learn the story well enough that you don't need to read the subtitles anymore.
Right.
You know what's going on.
Right.
Oh, this is happening and they're upset about this. Mm-hmm. And it's not a sit down and have a conversation about it movie. It's photographed for you.
Yep.
So when they're setting up the camp and they're building the moats and they're doing all of the things that they're doing, you could turn the subtitles off and you would get it. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't know their names, you wouldn't know the specifics. But when you see the lovers together, you know they're in love. You know it's a forbidden love. Mm-hmm. When you see the comic relief samurai stabbing the swords into the ground right before the last battle, you know that he's done playing. He's serious, he's ready to go. Mm-hmm. And you don't... Shush, I didn't say your name. Stupid phone. It's all right there. And yes, Western audiences might have difficulty with that amount of time, but that is such a lame excuse now, considering all the binge watching that we do.
Yeah.
If you can sit and you can watch 6 straight episodes of a show,
right,
you can watch a 3.5 hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you might need to pause it to go to the bathroom once in a while. So just pause it. Nothing's gonna happen. The world's not gonna end if you pause a movie. Just sit down and watch it because it's excellent, and you will see this reflected in almost every movie that you love in the last 50, 60 years.
Yep. And it's fun because you have that game where you're watching it, you're like, oh my God, there's that thing.
Yeah.
There's this thing. That's where they got that from. And it is, I mean, there's no way around it. Like it is one of the most influential films of all time.
Yeah.
And I always loved that Spielberg quote because it sends a charge down your spine of like, yes, these are the films that you have to watch to become a director.
Especially if you respect Spielberg.
Right.
To the degree that we do. It's like, all right, well, if that's what you do, then that's what I'm going to do.
Right.
It's when you hear like, an actor or an athlete's workout regimen. You're like, well, I'm going to try that. I'm going to do the 300 workout. No, you're not. You will die. Also, you don't have a professional trainer telling you what to do. But if it's seemingly that simple to get to a Spielberg level by watching film, then just watch the films that he watches. And maybe you can get it to be a fraction of the filmmaker that he is.
You will glean something from them.
Yeah.
You will.
100%. I didn't get a chance to look to see if this was anywhere online. I imagine that it's in the usual places.
Yep, and it is on Filmstruck.
Right. So if you are lucky enough to have Filmstruck, get on there and watch it. And don't just watch it. It's 3.5 hours of cinematic gold. And when it's over, you're going to be like, oh man, can we watch it again? I want to watch it with those commentary tracks. It's incredible. It is an incredible film. And I just want to watch more Kurosawa now. And that is one of the goals for me of this show, is to get exposed to these films that I don't know, that I've heard about, and then branch out and watch more of their work.
Yep. And like I said, we spoke about it when we did The Searchers, and then with the Seventh Seal, is like this is one of those 3 films where it feels like it's not made, like it feels like it was just dug up, and here it is.
The fact that this is set in 1568, it could have bing 1968. Like it just is. And the fact that they had muskets, I was thinking, when were muskets invented? So is this like the 1800s? And then I looked, it was like 15. Oh, not even close. Cool. But it's timeless, and that's why it was so easy to make it into a Western. And since he's influenced by Westerns, it's all the same thing. It's a hero's tale of selfless sacrifice and whatever it takes to help the little guy. And I have to say, this is just a dumb thing that I do. Whenever there's like people playing music or like a band or that kind of thing, at the end of the film when they're replanting all the rice paddies, they're like playing drums and a flute and stuff. Stupidly, I just go, play Freebird, because I'm dumb. That's it. As I'm watching Seven Samurai, at the end of the film, I go, play Freebird, because I'm an ass. Great. Seven Samurai. Friggin' fantastic. What's next week?
Oh my God, next week is the last episode of the season.
I know, I can't believe it.
But we are doing It's a Wonderful Life in time for the holidays, so there's that.
And a friend of mine, Rob Walker, from my home state of Colorado, has submitted a fantastic little video for us to talk about his love and appreciation of It's a Wonderful Life. And he's actually going to be performing in a stage version of it in Colorado next month. So I'll have more information on that next week with that episode.
Nice.
And I love It's a Wonderful Life. It is one of the saddest movies.
Every year it hits just a little bit deeper. It hurts just a little bit more.
As you get further into middle age and you get closer to the things that George Bailey deals with, it's just like, which is appropriate.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah. Great. All right. So It's a Wonderful Life. And then Christmas break. And be sure to, by the time this comes out, Northland will be online already.
Yeah.
So you can watch that. Go to David's socials and find it there.
It'll be on YouTube, but it'll be shared all over our page and my page, and it'll be out November 17th.
And happy birthday!
Thank you. OJ.
Cool.
But yeah, please watch the movie and let me know what you think. It's kind of, I was telling Robin last night, it's like, I know what my intention was. I have no idea because I've seen it so many times.
Yep.
I've lost all objective reasoning, so you guys got to tell me.
And that's how you know it's done. That's always been my benchmark. Once I'm tired of watching it, it's ready. Mm-hmm. And then it is what it is. Put it out there. I'm not a George Lucas type of tinker, reconfigure any of that stuff. It's out, it's done, it exists.
Move on.
And I can't wait to see it with an audience. Cool. Great, so until next time, I'm Lincoln L. Hayes.
I'm David Metzger.
Go watch a movie.
This one.
This one.